Good morning, everyone. Bree, thank you so much. Welcome to our 81st session. Today, we are going to go over quite a bit today, so I will go ahead and get us started. This is brought to you at no cost from the SBA and the state of California. I just saw some things had changed on this deck, but we provide you not only these webinars for free, we provide counseling, advising, and also training. So at no cost to you, we're able to provide this because of the funding that we get from SBA and the state of California. The SBDC Northern California region, we have 36 centers or 36 counties that we are able to assist during this time, and we've been here now, I guess, for 40 years. So it's been quite a long time that we've been here to be able to assist everyone. So we are happy to be here and on our 81st session for the updates. Today, this is presented to you by the Finance Center. I am Sunita Maharaj, the director of the Finance Center. We also have Steve Roth here from the Finance Center. He is a lending specialist, and he will be answering a ton of Q&A questions during this presentation. We also have on our team over 20 lending specialists and finance advisors that can assist you as well in the finance department. We help package up loans, and we are all about financing on our team. So thank you so much for joining us. Next, please. This is how you can get connected with us in Northern California SBDC. So you can get started here with the Financing Center. And if you also want to join with your local center, you can join here at www.norcalsbdc.org. And that's where you can find your local center as well. And you can also search us. This deck will be provided to you in the chat, so no worry to have to write that down. Usually I take photos with my phone. That seems to work for me. So housekeeping and disclaimers, really quick. Like it's stated before, the slide deck is going to be available to you in the chat. This webinar is being recorded, and it is available probably within 24 hours at ASKSBDC.com. If you have any questions, can you please place them in the Q&A and not in the chat? If you have any technical issues, can you please place those in the chat, and Bree would be happy to help you. Also, the questions that you're asking, can you let us know if it's in regards to PPP, EIDL, the second draw, the grant, or what it is that you are specifically asking for, because sometimes all the questions almost seem to sound the same, and we do our very best to answer it appropriately, but we want to make sure that we're going to answer it correctly if we have the information for you. So if you could just put at the beginning PPP and then your question, that would be great. We also have our attorneys here today too, and I'll introduce them in a second. As you all know, things are changing all the time, not as fast as they were previously, but things are still changing. I know that there's more stimulus package that's coming. Hasn't been put into law yet. A lot of questions in regards to that, but unless something is actually in law, has been written into law, we are not able to talk about it because we're just speculating on what that information is going to be. So this information was correct as of last night. So Case Force disclaimer, this is Case Force is here, our attorney coalition. They are with us every other week. They can provide you some information if it is COVID-19 pandemic related. Unfortunately, they cannot provide you legal advice. They are not intended to offer legal advice. And the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. These sessions are intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related issues. Next, please. And the attorneys today that will be assisting us and answering questions and giving us some new information or giving us information they've actually given us before. It's just something that we have new clients here today. We have new watchers, attendees, so maybe you haven't heard this information. So we will go over some things that we have in the past again. Maureen Lynch is here, and she is a partner at Morrison & Forster, and she can give you information in regard tax. So the ERC, if you have ERC questions, you can place them in the chat and just let us know, give us that information, and we can answer those questions for you. Heidi Kim is also here, attorney at Start Small, Think Big, and she can go over some lease information and real estate. So if you have those questions, hopefully we'll be able to answer them. And again, you can put them in the Q&A. The other thing that I would like to just let you know is that we're going to go over a lot of information during this session. First the PPP, then the EIDL, and then more. So if you wanted to hold off on your questions, we are probably going to answer it during this webinar. So thank you so much for being here. And next, please. Our agenda today, what's new? Also the California Relief Grant, the PPP and the second draw PPP, EIDL and the targeted EIDL advance, SBA Debt Relief, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, also known as the SVOG, which you will hear around, Employee Retention Tax Credit, the ERTC or the ERC, and also SBA team is here to give us any updates as well. We're going to go over our upcoming webinars. Case Force Attorney Coalition will answer questions throughout, and we will answer questions throughout this webinar today. So thank you again for joining us. Next, please. And I will hand this off over to Steve Roth, who is going to do the first section, and then I will pick it up a little bit later. So thank you so much again for being here.
Great, thank you, Senior. It's hard to believe this is number 81. Seems impossible that this is the 81st. So a couple of things that are new. California has announced that they're going to match the federal guidelines for PPP loans as it relates to taxes. So the PPP loans right now would really be the first draw loan that people received in 2020 are free of federal and state taxes. In California, it's up to $150,000 in PPP1. So it's good news all around. The California Relief Grant, the program is going to be expanded. It started out at $500 million. It's now $2 billion. And there'll be 4 new rounds of California relief. Brianna? So some other things for PPP2, the second draw, which is going on now. There's a different baseline for Schedule C filers. We'll talk about that in a minute. The goal of the program is to help small businesses, self-employed people, sole proprietors, entrepreneurs, contractors get a greater benefit out of the PPP program. And I think their changes are really excellent. So the maximum Schedule C amount for a sole proprietor is still $20,833, but hopefully more people will be able to access more of that funding. If you are in the SIC code of 72, which is broadly defined, restaurants, hotels, etc., then the is $29,167. So both are really wonderful changes. Bree? So increased financial aid for sole proprietors, contractors, self-employed people through changes in the funding process. At this point in time, this has now been baked into almost all of the lenders. So when you go to apply, they'll have the new formulas and the new criteria available at their portals. The new rules also eliminate exclusions for prior non-fraud felony convictions. Typically, SBA loans have a felony conviction issue, but as long as the felony conviction was not for financial fraud, you should be okay. And also any old student loans that are banging around the system that you forgot to pay off, they also should not be exclusionary criteria. And for non-US citizens, you're now open to the program and you'll use your ITIN, your individual taxpayer identification number, instead of your social security number or your employer identification number. So if you're a non-US citizen, a non-citizen US business owners can be involved in the PPP2 program now, which is great news. Great. So for the California Relief Grant, rounds 1 and 2 are closed. Those grants have been announced and people have either been denied, not many, but a significant number of people have been waitlisted. I think 350 to 400,000 people who applied have been waitlisted. Round 3 is now in progress. It started last Friday, and I think it ends this Friday. There are no new applications, so if you were waitlisted for rounds 1 and 2, you've simply been rolled forward into round 3. Round 4 is special and new. It's for nonprofits only and only certain kinds of nonprofits. And a new application will be required for the round 4. Next one. Rounds 5 and 6, all waitlisted applications are automatically rolled forward into rounds 5 and 6, which is good news. If you've applied and been waitlisted, you really don't have to do anything to be involved in the process. For rounds 5 and 6, new applicants may apply. Round 5 starts at the end of this month, March 25th, and goes through the 31st. Round 6, the start date is yet to be determined. Next slide. There we go. All communications should be with Lendistry, and Lendistry is where you apply. So we've put in their toll-free telephone number. We've also put in their email address. Lendistry makes all of the grant decisions and decides who gets funded and what amounts. Their call center hours are Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if you do have any questions, you should direct your questions to Lendistry specifically. Thank you. So for the Payroll Protection Program, the second draw, or PPP2 as we call it, eligibility for the second draw, you can apply for the second draw until the end of this month, March 31st. You want to make sure to include your SBA application number from your first draw on your second draw. There's a $2 million maximum loan amount, 300 employees or less, which are all slight changes from the PPP1. And the key gating criteria is that you have a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable calendar quarters of 2020 versus 2019. Only one of those quarters needs to be down by 25% or more. And so that would be January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, et cetera. You'd compare the 2020 revenue versus the 2019 revenue. If any one quarter is down by 25% or more, and you don't get any benefit for being down 50%, it's simply 25% or greater, then you can apply for the triple P2, assuming you don't have more than 300 employees and your loan amount would be capped at $2 million. Next one. So if you previously received a PPP loan, PPP1, you have to have already used or will use the full loan amount. So if for some reason you can't utilize all of your PPP1, then you won't get a PPP2. Remember, it can only be used for authorized use of funds. We'll talk about that in a second. You need to have been in business as of February 15th, 2020. And as part of the process with your lender, you'll be asked to upload a bank statement. If your banking period falls in the middle of a month, you might have to upload 2 bank statements, one that shows you were in business in the first part of the month and the other that shows you were in business in the second part of the month. At this point, all lenders are open for applications, although I know some lenders are going to begin to stop taking applications as of about the 20th or so, 20th, 21st of March, but most of them should stay open right until the end. As long as you apply by the 31st, then you're in the program and your application will be processed. The other really great thing about the second draw is that more different kinds of nonprofits can apply. Veterans organizations, associations, charitable trusts are all open for PPP2 and really should take advantage of the program. Next one. The borrower applies at their lender or lenders. So you go to the lender's site, your existing lender, if you like them, if you didn't have a good experience with your first PPP lender, you can go to a different one. The lender would then review the application. The application is the same for all lenders, so it's the same process. The lender reviews the application, gathers all the required documents, make sure the borrower is eligible, ask the underwriting questions, and will, for the purpose of this, be the face to the borrower. You'll be dealing with your lender and through your lender for the PPP2 process. The lender will then approve, hopefully, the PPP2 application, and they send it on to the SBA. The SBA does its review. It assigns a loan guarantee number or denies it if something goes wrong, and sends the information back to the lender. The lender then communicates with you, the borrower. If everything's gone well, it will generate your legal documents to sign and then fund you. If if something came back from the SBA process, your EIN number was wrong, or there was a digit off on your social security number, or your name was misspelled the second time, then you'll iron those out with your lender. The lender will resubmit to the SBA, and the process works again. The lender is also responsible for filing a form called a 1502 back with the SBA to show that the loan has been funded and everything is set. And in general, the process has gone very well. I've worked on literally dozens, and only one or two have had any kind of real problem associated with it. And it was almost always a function of the borrower. Next one. So the process can take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. It's generally going faster than that, but it can take a while if there's some kind of a glitch. The SBA is really turning things around in 1 to 3 business days. And your lender is your point of contact for this PPP2 process. Each one is going to deal with it a little bit differently. They have an underwriting responsibility. They may ask you for some additional information at one that they don't ask for at another, but it should all be more or less the same. And make sure you provide the lender with all the documents they ask for when they ask for them. It'll only slow the process down, because sometimes people don't realize they haven't given the lender all the documents, and so the lender's never actually sent the loan request to the SBA. It's just been hung up. So give the bank what they need. They're there to help you, but they have a role in the process as well. Next one. So some frequently asked questions, and several people. So, should you apply for PPP1 forgiveness now? And the answer is yes. The rules have been set. All the forms are out. There's no reason not to apply for forgiveness for the first round. You apply to forgiveness through your lender. Whoever your lender was for the PPP1 loan, that's who you apply to for forgiveness. They're the ones who review the application for forgiveness. They send it on to the SBA for the SBA's co-approval, and the bank or the lender is the one who will communicate with you that you've been forgiven. So your interaction is with your PPP1 lender. Should you apply for your PPP2 loan with the same lender you used for the first one? And the answer is yes. It's going to make life easier for you because they already have your information. And since the gating factor for a second draw loan is that revenues were off by more than 25% in any one quarter, the chances are pretty good that if you got a PPP1 loan, you'll be using your 2019 information as the basis for the PPP2 loan, because the numbers will be higher and you'll get a bigger loan. Must you apply for the PPP2 loan with the same lender you used the first time? And the answer is no. You have no moral, legal, or ethical obligation to go back to the same lender if you had a terrible experience with them, or if for some reason or other they're being unresponsive now. There are folks out there who will do PPP2 loans for non-banking clients, and we have a list of those up on the SBDC website. Can you apply for a PPP2 loan with more than one lender? The answer is yes, but only one lender is going to get the SBA guarantee number, and you may not know which one. So we've had it develop that someone applied with 2 or 3 lenders. The lenders work at different paces. So the third lender they applied to is the one who moved the process along fastest. They're in the process of getting an approval while they get a rejection from the second lender. because the first lender, because the lender already, one lender already has a guarantee number. So you might be making yourself, might be making the process a lot harder for you if you apply at multiple sources. Can you get more than one PPP2 loan? And the answer is no. There's one PPP2 loan to an EIN or a Social Security number. Do you need to apply for forgiveness for one before you apply for two? And the answer is no. You don't have to apply for forgiveness, but as I said before, there's absolutely no reason not to do it. And if you're applying for the second draw through the same group that did your first draw, they're going to ask you to apply for forgiveness because they would like to move the SBA, and it only makes sense to do so. Next one. So if you didn't get a PPP1 loan, can you get a PPP2 loan? And the answer is no, because you're going to get a PPP1 loan. So if you haven't gotten a first draw loan, you are a first draw borrower by definition, which is actually better for you because you don't have a 25% revenue decline gate. So if you haven't applied for a PPP loan before, or you weren't open by February 15th of 2019 for the first draw, you're just a PPP1 borrower. And when you go to your lender's portal, they'll ask you a series of questions that will direct you to the first draw application or the second draw application. So you're fine. Is forgiveness different for one versus two? And the answer is no. The process is going to work the same. The form should be the same. Should you call the SBA if you have a problem? And the answer is no. They don't have the staffing to do that, and you're really there to work through your lender. Your lender is your lender, and you should work with them through the process. How long does it take to get funded? Basically 1 to 3 business days after you sign the documents. I've had many clients who've been funded the same day. They signed the documents in the morning and they were funded in the afternoon, but it's really a quick turnaround process. Can you correct the application after it's submitted? And the answer is yes, until the loan is funded and a form, the 1502 form, is filed with the SBA. So you do have the chance to correct things, but once the loan is filed and documented, the process stops. Only one PPP loan per account. So once it's funded and recorded, it can't be changed, which means if you've already received a loan and before the rules changed for, say, a sole proprietor, fortunately, you can't go back. Next one. All right. So if you do have any problems, get help. The SBDC is here to help you. All of the banks have people who can help you. Do it before you file your application. I had one client, very sad. They should have gotten $97,000 in their PPP2 loan, but they filed the paperwork incorrectly and got $41,000. There was no way to go back and redo it afterwards. So as the old saying goes, measure twice, cut once. Next one. So forgiveness terms, right? Remember PPP2, the same as the first one, is spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. At least 60% of the PPP2 proceeds are spent on direct payroll costs. Remember, payroll costs can be higher than 60%. I've had clients who felt that they would only get forgiveness if it was 60%. It can be 70% or 80% or 100%. The program is designed to help people maintain employment and pay themselves if they're self-employed people, which means the more money that goes for payroll, the better. Everyone would be happy. For loans under $150,000, there's a very simple forgiveness form, 3508S. The form is available online, but the form is also available through all lenders. When you go to start the forgiveness process, you'll download it from your lender. The 60-40 split applies for both new and second draw loans. So 60% at a minimum has to be spent on direct payroll costs. Next one. All right. In general terms, businesses commit to maintaining an average monthly number of full-time equivalent employees equal to or above the number of FTEs they had during the previous 1-year period. Again, you can overthink this and you shouldn't. The goal of the PPP program is to maintain employment. So businesses are being given funding. The funding can be forgiven. And the goal is to maintain employment while we get through COVID. It's a great program and it's worked quite well. The amount that can be forgiven is going to be reduced if you don't spend the minimum of 60% or if wages go down by more than 25%. There are a lot of gimmies and gotchas, but there are also things that are called safe harbor rules. And safe harbor is an old nautical term. If you were a ship at sea and there's a storm, you'd have the right of going into a harbor even if you didn't have a treaty with that country in order to ride out the storm. And that's what we have here. Safe harbor rules are in effect for the PPP program, and they're great, and they'll help everybody with forgiveness. Next one. So safe harbor rules are really designed to help you when circumstances beyond your control, reasonable control, prevented you from meeting all of the forgiveness criteria. So, if your business was shut down by a government order, you're a restaurant, a bar, a music venue, or an esthetician, a beauty salon, and you couldn't open, it's not your fault you don't have as many FTEs. So there's a safe harbor provision for that. If you were unable to bring people back at the end of your 8 or 24-week use of funds period, but you brought them back by the end of 2020, then again, there's a safe harbor provision for that. If there were hourly reduction exemptions that are built into this, you can apply for those. Employees who didn't return to work, even though you tried to bring them back, there's a safe harbor provision in the forgiveness process to help you there. So these 4 provisions are really wonderful. People have used them. They're not that difficult to implement. Forms and explanations are available online, and the folks at the SBDC, both the Finance Center and the local SBDCs are all available to help you work through this if indeed you had a problem. Next one. So how to calculate your loan for a corporation. Borrowers calculate their aggregate payroll cost using data from the prior 12 months or from calendar year 2019, whichever is higher. So if your business suffered in 2020 during COVID, you'd logically use your 2019 numbers. If for whatever reason, even though sales were down, you wound up having higher payroll costs, you can use the higher payroll costs from the last 12 months. If this is a PPP1 application, then you logically would use the last 12 months, which are probably higher. There's a special provision for seasonal businesses, so you don't suffer as a result of having an average monthly employment that's low because they're only in business for a few months of the year. And an applicant that was not in business from February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019 can use their average monthly payroll costs for January through February of 2020. So again, the purpose here is to help as many companies as reasonably possible in the context of the law become involved in the program and benefit from it. There's a hot link if you download the slides that will take you to calculators for how to calculate it, and they work well. The banks will also help you do this when you apply. Next one. So if you're a sole proprietor or a contractor, and this means that you're filing a Schedule C for your income taxes. So if you're a sole proprietor, a contractor, you're not a corporation, you're not an LLC, you're not a sub S corp, and you're not a C corp, your 1099 income flows into your Schedule C, your profit or loss from your Schedule C flows into your 1040 tax form. Until the Biden administration made changes a couple of weeks ago, you would use line 31 off your Schedule C. Line 31 is the net profit or loss from the business in that year. You're now able to use line 7, which is your gross profit. So using gross profit, allow most companies, most self-employed people, to have a higher base payroll for the process. You multiply it by 2.5, unless you're unless you're a class 72 company, in which case you multiply it by 3.5, and your maximum payment is $20,833, and that's because no matter how much you make, there's a $100,000 cap. And so if you take $100,000 divided by 12 times 2.5, you get the $20,833. So if you use a Schedule C, you'll apply for a PPP2 loan using this process. Next one. And this is just an example of the form. Schedule C is usually the 3rd or 4th page in for your tax return. You'll be able to use your gross income. There are a couple of calculation issues or a couple of calculation ideas in here. And again, they'll all be on the application forms through your lenders, and we can help you if you're confused. But it's a much better base, because gross profit, gross income should in almost all cases be higher than net income for the business. The higher number will give you a larger PPP2 loan. Next one. So some draw limitations, right? Remember, it's 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost and healthcare costs that are rolled in. It's 3.5 times if you're a code 72, which is hotels, casinos, food service, food truck, anyone involved in those businesses. And there's a $2 million maximum loan amount. In the original one, I think it was 10 million. Next one. So use of proceeds, payroll costs, minimum 60%, but no maximum. You can include payment of interest on mortgage obligations, not principal, but interest. You can include rent, obviously, and utilities. Utilities can be reasonably broadly defined. Water, power, light, heat, etc. Eligible costs for payroll are any direct salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation that would be normal and customary for your business. Vacation pay, parental family leave pay, medical sick leave, all the things that are normal and part of most businesses. If you paid someone because they were dismissed or separated, those costs can be included. All reasonable group health benefits, including employer health insurance premiums, retirement benefits, and state and local taxes for payroll, are all part of uses of funds. And for PPP, we'll use a 24-week use of funds period. So you have a very long period of time, 24 weeks, to use 10 weeks worth of compensation. Next one. So additional expenses, you have payments for any software, cloud computing, any human resource software or outside services you might have, direct accounting costs. If you had property damage, you can deduct it. You have some covered supplier costs if you have for costs of goods sold, and covered worker protection expenditures for personal protection equipment. So if you were in a business where suddenly everyone is wearing masks and plastic suits and visors, and you have to replace those things on a regular basis, those get added into your people costs. Next one. So some additional PPP updates. Remember, a year ago, there was the EIDL program, which Sunita will talk more about later. EIDL is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Came in 2 pieces. You received the EIDL loan, but before that, if you checked the box on the application, you received an EIDL advance, which was $1,000 per employee up to 10 employees, or a maximum of $10,000. And there was some question about whether they were grants or they were loans, and they're grants. So you don't have to deduct the EIDL advance you received in 2020 from your PPP forgiveness calculation. If you did, the SBA is working to fix that for you in the background. You don't have to do anything. The covered period will be 8 to 24 weeks, but most everybody will pick the 24-week option, as it extends their use of funds period and gives them the maximum chance for forgiveness. Group insurance, vision and dental are eligible expenses, and borrowers who returned all or part of their PPP loan funds, may be eligible for a second draw for the first round. But I've never seen that happen. The next one. Remember, taxes and deductions, touched on it earlier. Expenses made with forgiven PPP loan proceeds can be deducted for tax purposes, whether you're a corporation or a sole proprietor, and they can be deducted from both federal and state taxes. Gross income will not include PPP funds, and that's the same if you're a sole proprietor or you're a corporation. And you don't have to include your EIDL grants either. So these things are really, they have no tax impact at all. Next one. So just word of caution, keep all your documents for 4 years. Someone may ask you for something. You can find your applications at sba.gov, but also at all of your lenders. Next one. And so PPP versus EIDL. Remember, PPP was designed to be forgivable. It has a 1% interest rate. If there's anything that's not forgiven, it becomes a term loan at 1%. Use of funds are payroll, mortgage interest, rent, utilities. You apply through the SBA approved lender and there's no collateral required. The economic injury disaster loan is not forgivable. The interest rate is 3.75% if you're a for-profit company and 2.75% if you're a nonprofit company, fixed for 30 years. So it's really an inexpensive long-term source of funds. You apply directly through the SBA for EIDL. The EIDL program is reopened. And if
Sorry, everyone. It looks like we may have lost Steve for a second. If he does not come back, then I will go ahead and pick up the presentation. Looks like he might be stuck. So sorry, I believe, Bree, where did Steve leave off on this deck?
He's speaking about the EIDL right now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So everyone, just to go over what PPP versus EIDL. So EIDL is not a forgivable loan. I know that there's been questions in regards to this, but unfortunately at this point in time, it's not a forgivable loan. So Steve, I'll let you pick it back up again because it looks like
sorry about that. Next one. So some things to remember. Just from my own experience, I've dealt with maybe 350 or 400 clients now. Don't get too lost in or about the PPP loan. It was designed to help thousands of companies, sole proprietors, and contractors across the country, and it's done a phenomenal job of that. So it's a very broad brush program. It makes the most sense when you think about it as what it was designed to do. Maintain employment for corporations and help sole proprietors hang on to some of their income through, a very long period of COVID. Keep all your documents for 4 years. Forgiveness for PPP1 is open and working well, and your lender is your point of contact for the PPP process. Next one. And remember, most PPP borrowers will and have received significant forgiveness. I know of no one who's not been forgiven, actually. Sole proprietors, contractors, self-employed people should almost by definition be able to get 100% forgiveness because you can use the funds over a 24-week period for compensation to yourself as a self-employed person. The EIDL advance is a grant. It's not deducted from your forgiveness calculation. And the unforgiven portion of any PPP loan becomes a 2 to 5 year term loan at 1%. So it's not the end of the world. And the PPP loans are not personally guaranteed so long as they were used for the intended purpose. And again, there's no reason why you shouldn't. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sunita.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. Thanks for going over all of that information on the PPP. I tried to answer as many questions as I could. I think we answered 40 questions. We have 11 up still. Some of them, I believe we've already gone over, but I just wanted to let everybody know, as Steve stated, you can still apply for PPP up until the end of this month. We don't know if they're going to extend that date or not. And I don't know at this point in time how much money has been already given out, but there is a possibility that that could happen, that they extend it or they shut it down and then they reopen it again, just from past experience. I don't know for sure, but just wanted to give you that information. So additional CARES Act programs. Next, please. So we have the Economic Injury Disaster EIDL loan that opened back up again, and you can apply today. The EIDL appeal program, I'm going to go over that briefly. The targeted EIDL advance, SBA Debt Relief, the SVO, very brief, and the ERC, very brief as well. Next, please. The EIDL program reopened in January, so you can go ahead on their website and apply for this. You go directly to SBA, and the EIDL application is linked here. It's also at sba.gov. That's where you can go. The application actually is very simple to go through. I believe it's 5 sections, and just be prepared to provide them with some documents, maybe the 4506T, which they will let you know if you need or not. So the application has been extended to the end of the year. And at this point, for new loan applications, the turnaround is really good. Next, please. The EIDL process for appeal. I know a lot of people are going through this right now, and it is backlogged at this point, but please give them a chance to get through these backlogs. And I think that you will be able to get reconsidered, hopefully, if you provide them the documents that they're requested. Please note that after 60 or 90 days, I believe 90 days, some of the documents that you provided will go stale and they will require updated documents. So please know that that could be the case as well. So you have up to 6 months to get reconsidered on a declined loans or loan increases. Some people have come to us, they, asking if they can get a loan to increase. It is a possibility. It is not a sure thing. Some people took less of a loan previously or declined the loan altogether because they were hoping that business would pick up, but now they need that assistance of the EIDL loan. So you can get reconsidered to get that loan now. You do not reapply. So if you applied for EIDL and were not denied, do not reapply. You'd want to go through the separate dedicated appeal process with PDCRECONS at SBA.gov. So it's PDCRECONS at SBA.gov. The link is here as well. Again, this deck is going to be provided in the chat so you can have a copy of it. You can get all of the different websites, the information. We also have a Google folder that I keep referencing to during the Q&A, answering the Q&As. That provides you all the documents that you will need at this point in time to apply for PPP. It'll give you EIDL information. It'll give you FAQs that are current as of right now. So a second application, if you were to reapply and you already have an application with EIDL, it'll just confuse the system. It'll just confuse everybody. It will get flagged as a duplicate and it'll really slow down the system even more. We have unfortunately had to work through this process with several clients in the last several months. The appeal process is working. It is not as fast as everyone would hope, but it is working. So SBA's team will let you know what documents are needed. SBDC can also advise you what these documents are. The document in the Google Drive also, or the Google folder also has all the documents stated on there on what you're going to need. Next, please. The targeted EIDL advance. No action is required until SBA contacts you via direct email invite. So they will invite you to apply or to complete the application for the EIDL advance. The emails are going out. They've been going out for the last few weeks. Somebody did ask in regards what the timing is on that, on when it's going to get funded, and I'm not sure in regards to that, but maybe Carrie would be able to give us a little bit more insight once we get to the Q&A. So the SBA will reach out to those who may qualify via email with instructions to determine eligibility and submit documentation. So there is additional documentation and application that you will need to complete. One of the advice that Carrie has given us in the past, and I'm sure she'll give to us again today, is when you are completing this document, please make sure that everything is correct. You're going to check it at least 5 times, I would say, to make sure all the numbers are correct, your address is correct, because you cannot go back to correct anything on this document. At this point in time, you cannot go back. So once your application is submitted and then you thought to yourself, I put my social security number and not my EIN, because it needs to match your EIDL application. That is going to create an issue, and it can possibly get you kicked out of the system or kicked out of the EIDL advance. So those people that did not get the advance at all, you may be able to get the $10,000 advance if you follow these, if you are in these 3 different sectors. Low income community, suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and has 300 or fewer employees. So those who applied for an EIDL advance but didn't receive funds due to the lack of funding will receive a full $10,000 if they meet the same requirements as above. So for those that receive 1,000, 2,000, not 10,000, you will be reached if you are in a low income community. The SBA will reach out to you. Next, please. Items needed to verify eligibility. You must have this information: 2019 federal tax returns, EIN or SSN as specified in the original EIDL application. So please make sure that you are referencing the correct information. I know that some people have changed the way they're doing business, but make sure that you are doing it. If you're a sole prop back then, that's the information. If you're using your SSN number, that's what you're going to provide them for this EIDL advance. Monthly gross receipts for 2019, 2020, and a completed months in 2021. So as of, it would be as of last month, so February. So confirm information in original EIDL application is accurate. Changes may require a manual review and documentation. So this will prolong the approval process. Applicants that pass the initial eligibility requirements will be required to sign a 4506T. This way that they can check the information that you've provided them to make sure it matches what the IRS has. Next, please. So SBA Debt Relief. All borrowers with qualifying loans approved prior to March 27, 2020 can get an additional 2 months of P&I paid for them by SBA. And this started in February of 2021. Also, for those that were hit the hardest and are in certain areas, they will also receive an additional 5 months. Additional 3 months, a total of 5 months for this relief. For Community Advantage loans and microloans approved by SBA from March 27, 2020, you will receive 5 months of P&I payments. SBA payments for P&I, principal and interest on the first 3 months of any newly approved loans will resume for all loans provided between February 1st and September 30th, 2020. All of these are capped at $9,000 per month. SBA will pay up to $9,000. If your monthly payment is more than that, you are still required to pay that other portion. You do not want to be short on your payments. This also is all subject to availability of funds. So they have a certain amount of funds in this program that they're able to use, but if they go beyond it, then they may not be able to pay all months. Previously, this stated that they had 6 months of newly approved loans. That is no longer the case. I know a lot of people have not picked up on that yet. It is now 3 months. So, but it is still a great deal to have. So next, please. Here's some other loan enhancements. SBA waives lender SBA fees for 7A and 504 programs. So the borrower fees and the lender fees are waived by SBA. So you don't have an SBA fee, which is really a significant amount. So that is a great thing if you're thinking about refinancing or if you're thinking about getting a new loan. Some bank fees may still apply because SBA will not be paying those particular bank fees for processing, appraisals, or any of those types of things. Loan guarantee increases for the lender up to 90% from 75%. They have done this to entice the lenders to continue lending to small businesses. Also, this new legislation has provided everyone, and it allows you to refinance your 504 loans. You can refinance it back into another 504 loan or to a 7A loan. I know that probably sounds very foreign to you, and I apologize, but that's why we're here to help walk you through that. So if you have an existing 504 loan or 7A loan, you can refinance that. But we will have to look to see if you're able to do that at this point in time. You have to be current, and there's some other caveats as well. The LTV on this, the loan to value, cannot be more than 90% of the appraised value. Next, please. So the SVOG, Shuttered Venue Operators grant is still not open at this point in time. I know they are working to open this up. I am in a meeting, I believe tomorrow or later today, in regards to this grant, and hopefully we will get more information here soon. I'm just going to go over some of this brief information. You can get updates at SBA.gov. I've even signed up for it. So that way, as soon as anything changes, you should get an email letting you know that this is opened up. So this grant is going to be administered by the SBA Office of Disaster, the same office that is handling the EIDL loans. The grant amount is, in general, will be about 45% of the gross earned revenue if in operation as of January 1st, 2019. If the venue was in operation after the 1st of January 2019, you calculate the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019 and multiply that by 6. Next, please. Shuttered venue, continued. Applicants must have been in operation as of February 29th, 2020. I know we get dates a lot where people are asking us if they started after that. Unfortunately, this is what is written in law at this point in time. February 29, 2020 is the cutoff there for new businesses, and must not have received the PPP loan on or after December 27, 2020. I know there's some information out there in regards to being able to receive both the PPP and also the SVO after December 27th. I have not seen that written in law yet, so we are still going to go by this. If you have received the PPP loan after December 27, 2020, you will not qualify for the SVOG. You can apply if you received an EIDL loan or a PPP loan in 2020. So even if you receive the EIDL loan after that, you can still apply you can still apply for the EIDL loan now, but just not the PPP. The SVOG can be used for specific expenses such as payroll, rent, utilities, and some other costs. And actually there is a list at SBA.gov, and it gives you an extensive list on exactly what you can use those funds for. The SBA will publicize the opening of the portal for applications in advance. So it won't just go up and nobody knows. They will let you know that. Next, please. So shuttered venue operators, the eligibilities include live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performance arts organizations, relevant museum operators, zoos, aquariums, motion picture theater operators, talent reps, each business entity owned by an eligible entity that also meets the eligibility requirements. Next, please. Things to remember. The targeted EIDL advance, SBA will contact you via email. If you think that you are one of the people the businesses that should have been contacted, I would ask you to please look into your emails and make sure that there is nothing from SBA there in your junk or maybe spam folder. I would check on a daily basis, honestly, in the mornings or in the evenings to see if there's anything there. It's a great time to get a new SBA loan with certain fees being waived, and first 3 months P&I will be paid by SBA while funds are still available. The SVOG, it's not open yet, but please register at the sam.gov since it will take a few weeks and is required. And sorry I didn't go over that previously. I just almost skipped through it. But this information is in the Google Drive and it'll give you exactly how to do that. Also on the SBA.gov for this particular SVOG, it gives you a video on how to do this as well. So there's videos on SBA.gov that provides you this information too. Next, please. Employee retention credit. I'm not going to go too much into this. The last time we were here, we did have Joan and she went over this, did a beautiful job. I just kept this one sheet. We are also going to have a webinar just directed to the ERC, and I believe that is going to be, Bree, can you tell us what date that is, please?
Yeah, it's going to be on April 6th, and I'll go ahead and put the link to register for that in the chat as well.
Thank you very much. So the ERC, a refundable tax credit that is offset against certain employment payroll taxes. Rules for qualification and tax credit amounts are slightly different for 2020 and 2021. And here's the information in regards to that. I believe there is an attorney. Yes, Maureen is here and she is a tax expert specialist and she can answer some of those questions if she hasn't already. But this is which businesses will qualify. Employers that operated during 2020 experience either full or partial suspension of the business operation. It goes into more detail here. 2020 quarterly gross receipts, less than 50% of gross receipts in the same calendar year quarter in 2019. 2021 quarterly gross receipts, less than 80% of the gross receipts in the same calendar year, 2019. And employers not operating in 2019 may use the same calendar quarter in 2020 or the immediately preceding calendar quarter to measure the gross receipts decline. Employers may qualify for the ERC even if they receive the first and second draw PPP loan. So you can receive the PPP loan and still qualify for this ERC. In the past, this was not the case, but this did change in the law, I believe, in December. Self-employed income, Schedule C, does not qualify for the ERC. And Maureen, is there anything that you wanted to add or change on this document?
No, I think you covered it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Next, please. So SBA support, here is the SBA's information. I want to show at the bottom here, SBA disaster contact info, 800-659-2955, and also the email addresses. If you have servicing questions, which we are having a lot of servicing questions right now in regards to the EIDL loan, people that haven't received maybe their payment coupons or any information, please go here, call here, the servicing area to El Paso DLSC at SBA.gov, and you can get that information here. So all that servicing information is located, or you can get from them. And today I would like to present Carrie Ellenwood. She is the Deputy District Director of the Sacramento District Office. She is here to give us any updates that she has. Carrie, thank you so much for being here again today.
Good morning. Thank you, Sunita. I appreciate that. I'd just like to give an overview of how the Paycheck Protection Program has assisted small business, and all of this is on our website as well. But currently, the current round of PPP is successfully reaching the smaller borrowers, just as we had hoped with our program to give them 2 weeks. Those loans for smaller borrowers are 94% of all the loans that we're making, and also 52% of the loan volume is under $250,000 per loan. And these figures are as of prior to today, so anything later would be a change. 84% of the number of loans that are made on this program this round are under $100,000, and they account for 30% of the dollar value of those loans made. Our current round of PPP is successfully reaching those small borrowers, as they have 92% of all the loans to businesses with less than 20 employees. And that number is 48% of the total loan volume. On our forgiveness side of the first round of these, 36% of the loans have completed their forgiveness, and that is about 32% of the total 2020 PPP loan volume. There were 5.2 million paycheck protection loans made. 1.9 have been forgiven. And in the forgiveness process, there are still 250,000 and 3 million applicants have not yet submitted their forgiveness. So we still have a ways to go on that section. I think one of the recent changes to the PPP program for Schedule C filers has quite a few applicants asking if they can change the way that they calculated their funds. So prior to, they could not use that gross income. And as Steve mentioned, they can use that now, but there is a cap on that amount. So please be aware that as a sole proprietor, there is that cap on the amount that you can receive. Now, unfortunately, this was a decision that was made later. And it cannot be retroactive. I've seen a few questions coming in. How can I go back and recalculate my loan based on my gross? And we cannot do that. Typically, once a lender has funded your loan and you are using those funds, that then gets reported to SBA on what's called the 1502 report. Once that happens, you cannot make changes to that loan. And since there's only one opportunity for the loan, it's not able to be updated or changed. So as quite a few people have reached out to us and said they're very frustrated with this. And unfortunately, given the IFR, interim final rule, which this brought to attention the use of the gross amount, we're unable to go back and change those. So your lender is not being difficult. SBA is not being difficult. It's the way the legislation has been written, and it's the way we are required to execute that. So unfortunately, those changes cannot be made. There are rare instances where, let's say you just got your funded loan and you want to go back and recalculate, you haven't received the funds. Your lender may be able to work with you to do that as long as they have not reported that via the 1502 report to SBA. Again, all of this information is on our website. There's a very long series of slides there that you can take a look at to get any kind of data that you want regarding who's receiving the loans, how they've indicated their business type. All of that information is out there for you. And as Sunita mentioned, our Shuttered venue operator grants applications have not started yet, but it's a very good idea to check our website regularly for that, or sign up for the Gov Delivery page that SBA sends out to your email with more information. And again, that's not being accepted yet, but as soon as it is, we will certainly be letting people know. I know it's a long-awaited program. And I just also would like to congratulate all the women-owned businesses out there. This is Small Women's History Month, and a lot of you have done successfully planning and building your small businesses and are keeping things going. So congratulations, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, Sunita.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I really appreciate your insight and valuable information for us as always. And I know some people are asking questions in regards to, you know, what is the new legislation that's going to come out? What do we feel about it? What do you think about it? You know, what's on it? And until it is written in law, we can't really talk about it. You know, we can guess, but things do change, which we have seen in the past year. Things change quite often. So what is in law right now may change a little bit later, but we can only tell you what we know as of today. So thank you. We appreciate your questions, and we want you to continue asking us questions. As I stated earlier today, we have Case Force here, and they are an attorney coalition that was created for this, for COVID relief 19 questions and such. And we have Maureen Lynch here and also Heidi Kim, which I introduced earlier today. And I'm not sure, Maureen, if you have any updates you'd like to share with us at this time.
I don't have any updates since the last time.
Okay, perfect. And Kim, if you wanted to go over anything, I know you always bring us great information as well. Or sorry, Heidi, if you have any new information for us or old information, that's great information to know, because it is a lot of information to keep in our heads.
Sure. I was asked a specific question about specifically about government assistance for commercial leasing. And so I wanted to talk a little bit, aside, unfortunately, there's nothing in terms of loan forgiveness, loan grants, because of course that would be a really big help. I know in California, Governor Newsom has announced a bill to use some of the federal stimulus money to provide rent forgiveness programs for residential tenants. And there's certain qualifications there for residential tenants, but unfortunately, it does not apply to commercial renters. And so, we've spent a lot of time talking about the PPP, EIDL, so there's certain federal assistance there. In California, really the government assistance takes place in the shape of a commercial lease moratorium. And the moratorium is specifically on eviction and not rent. And what Governor Newsom did was pass a law saying, not enacting a statewide commercial lease moratorium. Rather, the law says states, counties, you can enact your own moratorium. So it provides the authority for local governments to enact those moratoriums. And so the large cities, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, Los Angeles has enacted these, but there are over 150 cities that has also chosen to enact. And if you want to, I know there's a wide geographic area on this Zoom. And so if you want to check to see if your city where your business is run is affected, has a moratorium in effect, I've posted in the chat box where you can look up that information. For the larger cities, a moratorium extends through the end of this month. It's unknown whether Governor Newsom is going to extend that law for any other time period beyond March. And it's just important to note that so for any rent that you do owe, whether even if there is a moratorium on it, you will eventually have to pay on that rent. And when we advise clients, so Start Small, Think Big provides free legal services to small business owners. We do a lot of commercial leasing assistance. I put in the chat box the application to become a client. We have specific eligibility requirements, but if you are eligible, you receive free legal services for 1 year. And part of those services are commercial leasing legal matters. And so obviously in this past year, we've ramped up our assistance to small business owners with regard to brick and mortar places. And what we really see is the options being are working out a payment plan with your landlord. We have seen, at least with our clients, that if you approach your landlord saying, look, I'm behind on these months, can we somehow like amortize that payment throughout the next year, throughout the next 2 years? And so I've seen clients do that. Another suggestion is always just negotiating with your landlord any type of decrease in rent on the back pay. We've seen clients be successful. Obviously, it depends on your landlord and their willingness to kind of negotiate, and also whether you have a good relationship with them, whether it's a mom and pop landlord versus a larger. We're seeing that some of the larger landlords are willing to negotiate. So those are kind of the two main options outside of, you know, really that I see that are working for our clients. Unfortunately, not much in the way of government assistance as for rental tenants or residential tenants.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I think we have some questions here from Destin for Greatness Consulting regarding rent eviction, moratorium, and the term. Objectively verifiable proof of substantial impact of COVID-19 documentation means what outside of financial documentation being provided?
I believe that terminology, I'm not sure where you're getting that terminology, but my understanding is that the cities are requiring actual financial documentation showing, you know, the rent reduction or not rent reduction, the reduction in income that you've had.
Thank you. And Kelly is asking, it seems like there is residential help or credits, et cetera, not so much for commercial. Is there any insurance help for small businesses?
I'm not aware of any insurance help. I don't know if anyone else on this panel is.
No, I am not either. I know that
Meaning insurance help, meaning coverage. If you're meaning coverage, this was a huge headlines back in last spring. And my understanding is that for the vast majority of small business owners, your insurance coverage is not likely to contain a provision for, and this might be, you know, an act of God, a pandemic provision. In fact, a lot of insurance policies specifically exclude pandemics. So I think for Kelly, it might be, or in all of the small business owners, it's going to be dependent on your own policy. But my general understanding is that if you do have a policy where there is coverage for this kind of situation, then you've kind of won the lottery.
so you definitely, Kelly, you would have to read through that policy to see there. Maybe you can skim through it. If it's a PDF, you can also look for pandemic. And if there's pandemic in there, then you'll know that if it is, you know, if you do or do not have a pandemic, it should be in that document. I know some of those documents are quite large, so that's why I just say to search the document if you get a PDF of it. Let's see here, a question for Heidi. Is there any assistance to avoid foreclosures for business owners that have not been able to pay their mortgages since April 2020, both for commercial and residential mortgages?
Is there any? So in terms of, let's tackle residential mortgages. That is not the area of law that you know, I practice in my job, but I am familiar with my past experience that with residential mortgages, I would suggest actually negotiating and working with your bank directly because the banks have an incentive to not want to go through the foreclosure process. So I've, in my past experience, in my work, I've seen banks just wanting to work with people to avoid foreclosure. So for residential mortgages, I would contact the bank directly. Now for commercial mortgages, you know, I think there are assistance You know, there is help to avoid foreclosures. I don't have that off the top of my head. Gabriella, if you like to email me at Heidi, HEIDI, at startsmallthinkbig.org, I can get you that information. But generally, our clients are not on the landlord side. But I do know there is some government assistance for landlords who are small business owners.
Thank you, Heidi. And we have, Cheryl is asking a question, and we'll see if Maureen can answer this for us. It's regarding the ERC for which my S Corp should qualify. Are these credits refunds for taxes already paid in 2020? I see Form 7200. Do we simply fill out and fax to number on the bottom of the form? Lastly, we are in the process of getting forgiven for our first PPP, which was less than 150,000. Is this affected if we apply for the ERC funds?
Right, so there are kind of two questions here. One is, what's the procedure for applying for and obtaining that ERC? And the other question is, how does the ERC interact with the PPP? So for the first question, what's the procedure for it? If you have a payroll tax provider, or a payroll servicer, they should be able to help you process these credits. Normally you would fill out your Form 941, or you could request an advance of the credits on the Form 7200, as Cheryl points out. But the easiest way to deal with it is to just ask whoever does your payroll servicing for you. Then the second question, which is the one that's a little bit more substantive in nature, is how does the PPP and the ERC interact? And essentially, any amounts that you use to calculate your PPP, like so wages you paid that went into the PPP calculation, can't be used for calculating the ERC. So if you, for example, based your PPP amount on wages that you paid in the first quarter of 2020 or the second quarter of 2020, you couldn't use any of those wages for the ERC. You could only use wages that you paid at other times when you were qualifying for the ERC.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Let's see here. I think.
I just thought everybody might want to know that Congress passed the new COVID relief bill, all
Right.
1.9 trillion of it. So it now go to President Biden.
Thank you very much, Steve. We can't go over any of that information, but it's good to know until the president signs it, and then after it'll go to all of the, to Treasury, SBA, and then it needs to get digested, and then the banks, whatever the banks have to do, it's a trickle effect. So, I know a lot of the lenders have not started using the new Schedule C forms. And the reason is because they need time. They have to have time to be able to update their systems to do this. It's not as easy as we all think. So some lenders are, able to do this at this point in time, but some lenders are not. A lot of lenders are saying by the end of this week, the beginning of next week. And as I stated, you can still apply up to the 31st. We don't know if all lenders are going to accept applications up to the 31st or if the deadline is going to be extended. So please stay tuned. Bree, can you go to the next screen, please? So I wanted to tell you about we're going to have another update on the 24th, and CaseForce will be with us on that date as well. I wanted to let you know that there is on Tuesday, March 23rd, there's expansion capital for profitable businesses that have been in effect for 2 years or more. Even if you haven't been around for 2 years or more, I suggest that you watch this webinar, so that way you can get prepared for any expansion loans. Some businesses are actually flourishing during this time, and I know a lot of businesses aren't, but it is always a great learning tool for you once you start pivoting and all of us getting out of what's going on at this point in time. Next, please. So I'm going to go over some regional webinars also on the 18th, which was yesterday, sorry, on the 18th, Financing Your Business is also our regional advisor. Kyle is going to be presenting that, Kyle Roseman, and then on the 25th, Marketing Your Business. And on the 31st, the 10 things to know about managing employees. We also have a restaurant group with that is with us. And if you are a restaurant and you have not yet used their services, it is you should. You should stop right now and you should go on to the website and apply for services with them. And the reason is because they have such great information. They are working with all restaurants throughout Northern California, San Francisco, Sacramento, all over San Joaquin County, and helping these businesses try to pivot because, as everyone knows, a lot of the restaurants are the hardest hit at this point in time. So I would definitely suggest reaching out to us. If you want to see any of our older webinars, you can go to learn.norcalsbdc.org and you can sign up and you can watch any of our older webinars in regards to credit, the restaurant group, and anything that we have put on for the updates is on ASKSBDC. I don't believe that we are on the Learning Annex. Questions after this, if you still have questions, please email us at loans@asksbdc.com. If you are more comfortable speaking in Spanish, you can go to espanol@asksbdc.com at this point in time. Our phone number, 833-ASK-SBDC, you can reach us there, but the quickest way to get a hold of us is at loans@asksbdc.com. And if you wanted any more information in regards to the webinars, you can go to asksbdc.com. I did want to let you know, it's pretty exciting. The Finance Center is going to get their own website here pretty soon. So you will get to see all of our different advisors and what we do, and also link to our webinars that are coming up. So our next webinar for updates is going to be the week after next. Hopefully everything gets signed by the president today and that starts going into effect. We will give you those updates once we have them on that day as well. If you need a copy of this webinar, it is located in the chat. If you need copies of documents, it is in the Google Drive or Google folder within the chat as well. Let's see, I think we may have just two more questions. Heidi's email address and my email address, and Camila is also providing her email address. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. You may want to go into the chat really quick and get your documents right before we leave today. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you in 2 more weeks. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us, and thank you so much to our panelists, as always, Heidi Kim, Maureen, and Carrie Ellenwood, and Bree and Steve Roth for helping answer all these questions and for presenting. We appreciate it. See you next time. Thanks, everyone.